All right, I want to welcome in our Jonathan Charles, another writer with me here at Scoop Duck for another edition of some college football discussion, recruiting discussion, focusing on Oregon, but also some headlines around the sport of college football. While the Pac-12 isn't playing, our Ducks aren't playing, but there's still plenty of stuff to talk around the sport. Jonathan, how's it going, man? Thanks for being here.
Good. I'm happy to be here, Max. How's your day been?
It's been good, man. It's been good. Just trying to, keep that positive momentum, get the week started off right. It is Monday, August 31st as we record this. So let's get right into it. We just had a story posted today about the Oregon 2021 recruiting class and kind of some of the guys
hmm
that our Justin Hopkins thinks is going to make the call and end up going, with Oregon. So if you guys are subscribers over there, make sure to go check us out on scoopduck.com. But Justin, Jonathan, excuse me. I want to get your perspective, kind of bring this topic up. Who do you think are some of the guys that fans should keep an eye on as far as, finishing this Oregon 2021 class?
Yeah. So some of the names to keep up with. There's some holes at defensive back um, that the coaches are looking to fill, either that corner or safety spot. Um, Jeffrey Bassa from Salt Lake City, Utah, is a name. Damon David from Maryland. Sire Wright is another guy the staff is looking at. Um, any names that you can think of, Max?
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you some more about those guys here in a second. But some of the ones that pop out to me, obviously, we have Oregon in the running for Korey Foreman. He
hmm
recently took a visit out to SEC country in Georgia, and when we say take a visit, I think it. We were talking about this before. I think it just means that he went with his family and some other recruits and kind of checked out Athens. That's kind of as far as I know about that. He did get a crystal ball on 247 Sports. I didn't check who it was from, but he got a crystal ball to Georgia. So maybe some steam going for Georgia. And then another guy I want to
hmm
talk about in this class that Oregon is heavily pursuing is Bryce Foster.
hmm
There's been a lot of stuff about him and how his grandma went to the U of O, how he's trying to do both track and football at the next level. And, we're here in Tracktown, USA. So that could be big. One topic I want to talk about, since we're looking at Bryce Foster, it's widely viewed as an Oregon versus Oklahoma battle. We had the Sooner Summit, this past week or so, where Caleb Williams organized it with his family. He's the Oklahoma commit,
hmm
and they got a group of top recruits to go out to Norman and kind of take an unofficial visit there. What's your reaction to that, seeing that we are kind of in this recruiting dead period right now?
Yeah. So the word is that Caleb Williams and his dad set up that trip with all the commitments and a few of the uncommitted guys that Oklahoma's after, like Tristan Leahy from Virginia and some other guys that they invited that couldn't make the trip, like Emeka Buka from Washington, Bryce Foster from Texas. Just some of the names that were invited that weren't able to make it. But I mean, overall, I mean, that's a cool thing to see, that these kids were able to organize this kind of thing and do a little their own little recruiting thing. My kind of thoughts on it is that, yeah, it's a cool idea, but like, how do you know how much involvement the Oklahoma coaching staff had to like set that up and like contact guys like, hey, like there's this it's called the Sooner Summit and we're trying to set it up for recruits. So it's kind of hard to say who really got involved with it, and it's kind of naive to say that only the recruits set it up. So I guess that's kind of I guess dumb that like the Oklahoma staff probably did have input in that, and it's not fair for the rest of the colleges that are doing it the right way.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting storyline to follow. I talked about it in my take this past week. We had pictures, from one of the parents, one of the moms. She was like, "Hey, thanks for. I'm glad we got to have this trip." And the recruits were on the field, so it's kind of just makes you question, how exactly did that get set up?
Mhm.
And we're not trying to imply that Oklahoma is dirty in any way. We're not saying that. We're not saying what they did was wrong.
Mhm.
It's just really interesting to see that as a recruiting headline during this pandemic. Coaches are going to do, organizations are going to do whatever they can to try to kind of get that leg up. So that was something I just wanted to talk about real quick there. But I want to circle back to two guys that you mentioned, Jeffrey Bassa out of Salt Lake City. I know
Mhm.
he's balling. I talked to Jackson Light. He's also out there in Utah. So they're both getting their seasons going. But Damon David, he's a recent offer out of Maryland that the Ducks made. I know you were able to talk to him. We have that story up on the Scoop Duck site. Tell me a little bit about what
Mhm.
you're hearing about him and the Ducks.
Yeah, so the Ducks came in the race late. It was mostly between Michigan and Boston College. He has a really good relationship with Coach Hayward at Oregon and Coach Cristobal. They're kind of recruiting him in the spot that Javon Holland was playing, kind of that nickel, all around DB, come in the box, play the slot, play that deep third. And looking at his tape, he has really good tape. You see the traits that he presents, and it presents well at the next level. Some guy that that the coaches did a really good job on scouting and finding a guy that could fit their system. It's going to be hard because he's built a long relationship with the two other colleges, Boston College and Michigan. With Boston College, they have Coach Hafley, former Ohio State defensive back coach. And then Michigan, he has a good relationship with Coach Harbaugh and the defensive backs coach and then the defensive coordinator there at Michigan. So it'll be interesting to see what his major factors are and if he's able to take a visit out west to Oregon and kind of weigh his options if he's able to take the other visits to the other two colleges.
Yeah, is he gonna be? Is he gonna be a guy that fans really want to keep an eye on? I'm super interested to kind of see how his recruitment unfolds. After reading your story on him, I definitely flipped on the film there, and the dude just plays super loose. He's
Mm-hmm.
always around the ball. Really, really good at putting his foot in the dirt and just delivering that
Yeah,
hit.
physical.
You always want someone that can tackle in the open field, especially in the secondary. So we'll have to keep an eye on him and kind of what's going on with him. And then looking at the Oregon 2021 recruiting class, you got a bunch of absolute studs in the mix here. I know one thing that we wanted to talk about was maybe some guys that are under consideration for a ratings bump, with the experts in the field. But I
Mm-hmm.
think let's take a look at some guys that you think might be in line for a ratings bump, with the caveat that some of these guys aren't even going to be able to play their senior seasons with COVID restrictions. So any names kind of pop out to you? I know Ty Thompson got his 5th star on Rivals recently, but anyone else that you're looking at?
Yeah, so besides, as we all project Ty Thompson to get his 5th star on 24/7 Sports Composite, if he does well, that's kind of like a no-brainer, and he's kind of shown that on his recent uh, quarterback tour this summer. A guy that I think could get a rankings bump, Christian Burkhalter, just recently played on Friday. He did well. Terrell Tillman could be a guy. Jonah Miller could be another guy that gets a rankings bump. So I think those are 3 names that could definitely see a bump in the rankings for sure.
Okay. Yeah. I know that Terrell Tillman and Burkhalter are kind of some of the sleepers in this class, that they're not rated super highly. But I think they both go against really elite competition, with Tillman playing in Texas and Burkhalter playing over there in Alabama. Some of the guys that I kind of have my eye on as far as maybe getting a rankings bump, I think Terrence Ferguson got a bit of a bump in the recent release. Right now he's coming in at the number 231 player in the country, number 10 tight end, and the top player in the state of Colorado. We're seeing that trend with the Oregon recruiting classes, how they're consistently going into these states and getting the top player to come to Eugene. Ferguson is just a crazy athlete. I mean, when you're looking at his film, he's a guy that often gets bumped out to the receiver, and he just
Mm-hmm.
makes some crazy plays. And I'm super, super excited. He might be my favorite commit in this 2021 class on offense. And then you also have another guy that I think is rated a little bit low for how dynamic he is, Seven McGee. We've talked about him a couple times. I think he's kind of that guy that fans are quick to compare to DeAnthony Thomas. But on the topic of that comparison, I think I'm kind of waiting for that next guy to come into the system that is going to be maybe even better than DeAnthony Thomas. And
Mm-hmm.
then the narrative kind of begins, oh, he's going to, like, he reminds me of he'll be the next Seven McGee, kind of, if that makes sense. Like, we've had that
Yeah.
narrative for so long. I think it's time that we bring someone in that really is super electric and dynamic. So those are just some
Mm-hmm.
of the guys that I have my eye on.
Okay, for sure.
All right. And then, so now that 2021, it's not finished by any means, but, things are slowing down a bit with regards to that class. So a lot of staffs across the country are looking to 2022. So I want to talk about the 2022 class and, some of the recruiting needs that we have there. QB is always going to be a need. You want to get your field general, and I think it always helps if you get that player earlier rather than later so the other
Mm-hmm.
offensive recruits know who they're joining. And then DB is going to be big. You got Javon Holland going to the NFL. Brady Breeze will be graduating, I believe. So there's going to be some holes there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know you did that recent article on some of the top players in the state of California. You've been kind of seeing what the staff is maybe looking at as far as 2022 goes. What do you have to say about maybe some of the needs that we have in this next class?
Yeah, some of the needs are probably going to try and replace or try and fill, because you can't really replace those guys. Mikael Wright, Kayvon Thibodeau are just like two simple names that I can think of at the top of my head. Some guys to keep a name of, Zion Branch, safety from Nevada. He attends Bishop Gorman. Quarterback, Malik Murphy is a guy from Huropro Serra from Gardena, California, ranked as the number 2 pocket passer, 28 overall. Another guy is Taro McMillan from Servite, Anaheim, California. I didn't pronounce his name right. Another guy is Jack Peterson. Is going to be a huge guy in the class. Number 5 ranked tight end, 6'4", 235. He's kind of the guy that the staff wants at tight end. Those are 3 names that I think they're probably going to be big for the class.
Okay. Yeah, definitely some guys to keep an eye on. And it's so interesting, with this trend of I feel like you see the blue bloods, that upper echelon of college football programs, they get their classes filled up, or at least get them going early, so that once this class is, well, most people are scrambling to finish their class, maybe not scrambling, but they're putting the finishing touches on their class later in the game. And then you see these blue bloods like Alabama, like Clemson, like Ohio State, they're one step ahead of everybody else, going forward. And I think that with the job that Oregon's done in this 2021 class, they position themselves well to make that transition, relatively seamlessly, and just try to, get that leg up on the Pac-12, on the country, as I think they're one of the better recruiting teams, no doubt, in the Pac-12, with, Washington and USC probably being the closest competition. We got some of the guys to keep an eye on from you. And now I want to ask you, are there any guys that, that you view as like dream commitments or dream wants that the staff would just love to bring in for this 2022 group?
Yeah. A name that I think could be a dream one is Sean Murphy from Virginia. 5-star inside linebacker. Could be a huge get for the Ducks. Another guy I could think that could be a huge get is Cyrus Moss. There's an update on Scoop Duck by our new guy, Kirby. Um, Go check that out. Another guy could be Ernest Green, that like is a huge one. And then the three guys that I listed earlier are huge ones for the class. I know the staff is looking to take a smaller O-line class, but it's going to be hard because there's a lot of O-line talent out this year with three guys in Washington and then a few guys in California that the staff is looking at. So there's a huge list of guys that the staff is keeping track of and who they want and how they progress this coming season.
All right, there you have it. You got some names to kind of mull around over and maybe give a Twitter follow to as we transition to the 2022 class. I know one guy that I'm going to have my eye on is Raleek Brown, running back out of Mater Dei. Just for, if not for the sheer fact that he's just amazing to watch. I think running back is a position that you always are so interested when it comes to Oregon football and kind of the diverse backfields that they have. They had Jaden Knott at Bishop Foreman. He opened up his recruitment. He's still going to be considering Oregon, but Raleek Brown is another guy that the Ducks have offered. And shifting kind of, is there anything else you want to hit on recruiting? I wanted to kind of move along a little bit, but didn't want to wrap that up too quickly.
Yeah, another name is Javonte Barnes from Desert Pines High School in Nevada. He's ranked as a number 6 running back. I feel like he's a guy that the staff really values out west. Another guy is Damari Alston from Georgia. He's kind of had really high interest on the Ducks. But, I mean, we'll find out more on September 1st when coaches can start calling and who the coaches start valuing more on their board. So we'll definitely get an inside look once these recruits start contacting their college coaches and seeing what colleges fit them the best.
Yeah, the phones are definitely going to be blowing up, right at midnight tonight as 2022 guys can start having more contact with these coaching staffs. And you mentioned Desert Pines out there in Vegas. Vegas is really, I feel like, putting out a lot of great talent lately.
Mm-hmm.
You got Maliki Matavao for Oregon coming out of that area. And then Desert Pines specifically put out Darnell Washington, 5-star tight end now at Georgia. But now shifting into a little bit, kind of more headlines around college football. The last one I have that I want to focus on for Oregon is the scoreboard that's being put up at Autzen Stadium. Jonathan, I don't know if you've had a chance to go to Autzen or see a game here. What do you think about kind of the environment, the atmosphere that Oregon kind of has the reputation of?
Yeah, so I've never been to Autzen. I've never had that game day experience. I hope to have that experience one day. But from watching it on TV and how people describe it, it's electric, it's loud. The opposing teams can't get their calls from the sidelines because it's so dang loud. I mean, it's going to be amazing to see that new scoreboard on TV and then one day see it in person. Yeah, I mean, it'll be cool to definitely see like an upgrade to the stadium. Hopefully they can add more seats once Oregon starts trending in the right way because I know Autzen fills up quick.
Yeah, it's a little bit on the smaller side when you look at, some of the other big name programs and how many people they're able to pack in. But it gets rocking. There's no doubt about that. Really missing that atmosphere right about now as, we would have been kicking off the season here pretty soon. And kind of on that topic, there's not going to be fans at a lot of these stadiums when college football does kick off. As we just had that last game with Austin Peay on Saturday. That was the first game of the season, even though it's not a super high-profile program, but I did see fans there. So that kind of leads me into this next question. With, all of this uncertainty, confusion about how many fans are going to be able to go, if there's going to be any fans there, do you think that home field advantage is going to be a thing in this COVID season?
That's kind of hard to say. I feel like I would say no. I mean, you can make it as much of a home field advantage with the music and with like the surround sound. But I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to get that home field advantage with only at most 25% or 50%, depending on uh, the state of the pandemic in that state. So it's kind of hard to say, but I say no. That's going to be kind of hard to replicate that kind of home field advantage for that team.
Yeah, it's going to be so different from any other season that we've seen. And I'm kind of in the same boat with you as far as if there's really going to be that much of an advantage. I think there's going to be an advantage insofar as the home team doesn't need to travel. But then you could kind of get into the whole idea of there's not going to be a bubble, and how much will traveling affect the season? Are they going to have charter flights? Are they going to just drive if possible, on a team bus or something? And I think kind of one of the weird things that we've seen with this whole process of trying to see if we're going to have fans, if so, how many, among the plethora of regulations that we're trying to figure out, is just chaos when it comes to the college football landscape. And how much we've really needed an overseeing force, a commissioner. But might go without saying that it's a lot easier said than done, and that a lot of these conferences, the decisions that come down from the top, they're trying to look out for their students and their universities. Mm-hmm. So what do you make of that? We have 3 of the Power 5 conferences getting ready to go for football here, while the Big Ten and Pac-12 have decided to cancel their seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those 3 conferences finish out their season, especially with the way this pandemic has been trending, and then winter season coming up soon. Flu season coming up. So I don't think they finish out their season. I believe they'll probably play 2-3 games and then cancel it if they start September 26th. So that'll put around middle of October. It definitely sets the other conferences at a disadvantage in terms of recruiting and being able to show like, oh, hey, like this is what our guys are doing. We brought in a new offensive coordinator. We brought in a new defensive coordinator. This is what we're able to do. And then just like these high marquee matchups like Alabama against Georgia, Florida against LSU. So those are like big time sales. And like if you're able to beat a team like that, then like it makes a statement and you can sell that to recruits and say, oh, hey, like this is the trend that we're going, and we're keeping it that way. And then also in terms of financial, it doesn't help the schools that aren't playing. And then just overall in general, like it's just not fair for the fans of the other conferences to say like what are we going to do? Like we don't have anything to do. So like we just have to watch the other conferences. So it's not really fair. It would be better if there was a NCAA commissioner, just like how the NFL and the other professional leagues do their roles. It would be more beneficial instead of just like this independent delegation of what's going to happen in their conference.
Yeah, it's just so weird not really seeing anybody on the same page as we move forward in this unprecedented time. A point that you made that I'm interested in is, that effect on recruiting. Are there going to be teams that say, hey, look, we were playing at Alabama, running up the score on people, but Oregon was over there and they weren't playing. It just kind of, it's a conversation starter for sure. But I mean, these coaches that are in the Big Ten and the Pac-12, it's got to be hard to kind of not look on just with your hands tied behind your back with this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and these teams in the SEC, like they can elect and say like, oh, like we don't want to play because of the pandemic, but they all elected to do it because they're like, why not? Like we're gonna make money off of it. It's a good sell, but instead teams just want to go with the trend instead of making a stand and saying like, this is what we're gonna do, but they just follow along.
Yeah, I like what you said. They're going with the trend. It's just so weird that we saw the Big Ten kind of be the trailblazers of this situation in terms of them being the first conference to pull the plug. And then we saw the Pac-12 closely after that follow suit. And with the Pac-12, I think it's a little bit of a different situation because if you look at the geography of the conference, you have 4 schools in California with Stanford, Cal, UCLA, and USC. And California is really not doing well as far as numbers and the whole situation goes. So to a certain degree, I mean, if you cut out a third of the conference just off the top, there's not really much they could have done. But I think what's interesting is, how much of a role liability played in the situation. And when we're looking at the Big Ten now, we're seeing parents, I think the Ohio State parents were outside of the Big Ten headquarters in Chicago. And then now we were hearing from the Penn State athletic director that there wasn't even a vote made on this decision to cancel the season. So it's just so crazy to see all this chaos and, to a degree, a lack of transparency.
Yeah. Like, these teams can say, like, we don't want to play and take a different path and, like, agree with the other conferences, but they're being selfish and, like, not seem like they care when they know, like, there's a pandemic going on and no one's sure of how it's going to progress. Like, for me personally, I work at the hospital. My mom works at the hospital. So it's kind of saddening to see that people really don't care, that, like, they're just going on with normal life as if it was 2019. So it's kind of heartbreaking to see that on a personal level.
Yeah, it's so weird to see, I mean, how the whole climate of, the country has changed with the development of the coronavirus, and some people are taking it seriously and some people aren't. I mean, regardless of where you stand, I feel like we can all kind of get together and behind the idea that we want football as soon as possible in a safe manner. And we all kind of want to get back to some kind of a normal life. But it's really, revealing, I think, what matters the most to people. And I think we're seeing in sports in general, just, how important the money, financial situations are with the sport, and just how many moving pieces there are, especially with collegiate athletics, to keep everything going, with players finding their voice, some choosing to opt out of the season because they're going to be going to the draft next year, some opting out just out of their own health concerns. So it's really a unique time to be a college football fan, to see these players, finding their voice and using their platform.
Yeah, like, especially the social injustice that's going on right now, and players using their platform to use their voice to make a difference in their community and college, which is awesome to see. Like the NBA taking a stand to postpone or suspend their season due to everything going on politically. That was kind of awesome to see that the players took a stand and kind of had that right and the idea behind it to carry out their message, and then the rest of the professional leagues to carry out as well, which was so awesome to see that they did something like that, because, like, they just all united and came together and say, like, oh, we're going to support with what's going on, and we're happy to say that the NBA took the first stand in it, so we're going to follow lead.
Yeah, it's definitely it's something that's interesting to follow, and I'm kind of in the same boat as you are. It's awesome and honestly refreshing to see these players finding their voice and using their platform to bring about positive change. And it's an inconvenience insofar as people are, some players and teams are sitting out, so people want to watch sports, and that's a bummer. But when you compare that with everything else that's going on in our society, these players are trying to bring about positive change. It's good things at the end of the day. And it's just so mind-boggling to me how people are going to be upset about these players trying to get what is best for them. But at the same time, they're cheering them on Saturdays when they're helping their favorite team win a national championship, that kind of a situation. So it's just such a weird, dialogue. I feel like at the end of the day, I want to see football as much as the next person does. But with all this craziness going on, we do have bigger problems in our country than just getting football back on track, or sports in general.
Yeah, and it was awesome to see that the NCAA said that the players can wear something meaningful to their jersey, that they can add something on, and that like it would be kind of that the players would need to unify on some words that they could put on their jerseys, which was awesome to see for these collegiate athletes to say what they want on their jerseys. Um, and just like on the whole health issue, like if the NCAA came up with like a protocol of or a set of guidelines that each team would need to follow, like a 2-week quarantine, constant testing, something along those guidelines, which would benefit these colleges and probably get a season back as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's an awesome point, because you just want to see some kind of guidance that everybody can be on the same page of, even if it's a super small measure. There's masks and everything, but some people are getting all political about that. So I don't want to harp on that too much here, since we're trying to focus on sports, but it's a very unique time, like I've been saying, where everything's kind of meshing together. What was that last point I was going to go on? Hold on. It was I can't remember. I'm just blanking sometimes. I get all excited about the topics that we're covering, and then I can't remember what we're doing. But it's a unique time for sure in college football, and I think it's interesting, for us as reporters that cover this kind of a deal,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take part in history like this, and kind of document what's going on in an unprecedented time.
Yeah, like even if there wasn't a pandemic going on, like these players would still take a stand and say what they want, and say how they feel about with the social injustice and everything political. But I mean, in a perfect world, like sports and politics wouldn't be meshed together. But with the way how things are right now in the nation, and a complete mess, it's kind of just they both combine in an odd way.
Yeah, they're coming together right now, and kind of in ways we didn't really expect. But we're all hoping to get back to football as soon as we can. Another headline that popped into my head that we talked a little bit about before we hit record here, was Austin Peay and Central Arkansas kicking off that game this past weekend, the first game of the 2020 college football season. Were you able to catch any of that game? What was it like for you to see live football back on there?
So I didn't watch it just because it's Austin PB, but I mean, I saw some of the highlights, and it was awesome to see. Like I saw one, it was a player knocked the Austin PV on his back. So I mean, that was cool to see, I guess, but I didn't catch any of it. I just kind of caught some of the clips on Twitter.
Okay, yeah. I was hoping to watch some of the game live, but the guys in my house wanted to watch the Blazers game, seeing that they're from the Portland area in Oregon City, and the Blazers were still in it at the time that that football game was going on. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was able to catch the highlights, and it was just so nice to see something new. Like I feel like at this point, especially with the Oregon highlights, like I've watched the games so many times. Like I know what's gonna happen. I know like all the little ins and outs. It feels like. So it was just refreshing to see something new, and I think that's part of kind of what we miss so much about sports. When these two teams take the field, we don't know what's going to happen, and it's interesting to watch it because of all that unknown that kind of surrounds the game.
Yeah, and we don't even know what's going to happen with the NFL, if they're even going to be able to finish off a season with their 17-week schedule and playoffs and all that, and the Super Bowl ending in February. So, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting how the NFL handles that, and how things progress with the next 3 months of 2020.
Yeah, I recently did the fantasy draft with some of my buddies, and it looks like we're getting ready for the NFL season. I think that even though it's a weird situation, like you were saying, we don't even know if it's going to finish. I think that is kind of what people are going to have their eye on. Sure, we're getting going, but can you maintain it with the current climate? but I think that the NFL does have the resources compared to a lot of these colleges, especially the smaller colleges, to
Mhm.
support that robust testing. I see a lot of people are wearing those little bracelets that track their movement and like beep when they're getting too close to someone. So I think it's an interesting discussion insofar as we don't know kind of how it's going to go. It's a trial run, but I think that is to kind of bring it back to Oregon and the Pac-12 a little bit. I think that these other conferences that are playing and them going forward with it, it's kind of going to be a trial run, and they're going to be able to see what works, what doesn't work, what kind of measures do we need to put in place to do a little bit better. But to also go back to what you said, if they do get through a whole season, there's going to be a whole lot of people mad that they didn't take the field.
Yeah, like I think they'll probably get through 6 games, 8 games, and then call it there, and then kind of just do a playoffs kind of deal later on. And I mean, like you said, like if the NFL didn't try, people would be more upset that they didn't try it and at least give it a go.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, these people in the NFL, they are paid professionals. So that
Hmm.
you could go back to the whole open up a whole nother can of worms with, our NCAA athletes, amateur athletes, with the amount of money that they're bringing in. And we're kind of seeing how much money is moving the world of college sports, and with these campuses being mostly empty, but we have the athletes there. Kind of just popped into my head with that. Do you think that where do you stand on the argument of players being safer on campus in a controlled environment versus at home, with their families, since a lot for the people that can't play?
Um, yeah, that's a definitely interesting topic to think about. Whether these kids are safer at home or safer at their college campus. Like a lot of these guys don't have a lot of aren't safe in their home city. A lot of these guys come from bad neighborhoods, and that they really didn't want to come back. They kind of just want to just be in college and do their thing there and succeed and go to class and get an education. And that's not the case for most of these guys. Like a lot of these other guys, like do live in good neighborhoods and in a good community. So it's kind of like easier for them to say like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pack my bags and go home. In terms of like the health issue, it's kind of hard to say because you don't really want to hold these guys hostage on campus, and you do want them to spend time with their family. And it's a stressful situation with everything going on politically and socially with the health.
Yeah, I think that people are. I think as far as where I stand on it, I think that the players are probably safer health wise just on campus. With it being a controlled environment, and I think even if you can't play a season, I think that if you're there with your teammates, you can all unite on that. That we all want to get back to football as soon as possible. We want to stay as safe as possible, as healthy as possible, and they'll all still have that common goal together. But there's no right or wrong answer. And I know that the Oregon players, were given the option to go home if they choose, or stay on campus, with the fall term starting on September 25th. So we'll see, what happens. I've seen some players, just while I've been here. I think I've said on the channel before, I saw some players at the grocery store. That was pretty surreal. But we'll see who chooses to stay, and if most of the guys are going to stay, or what the staff tells them. It's an incredibly fluid situation, but I think we know at the end of the day that Mario Cristobal is going to make all of his decisions, with his players' best interests at heart. We've hit on a lot of great stuff here, Jonathan. Is there anything else that's on your mind, Oregon related, college football related, anything else you wanted to hit on here before we wrap up?
Um, last note, I guess, with this 2022 class, as we record here today again on August 31st, it'll be an interesting next few weeks to follow for the 2022 class, as we'll definitely get some good reports of where some kids stand with Oregon. Probably in the month of September, we'll get a good idea of who the staff values more, and how maybe some guys are closer to committing than other guys. with the way Oregon's been training and how they've been handling everything socially and health-wise. So I think that's like a good storyline to keep up with the next month. And then with some guys close to committing in the 2021 class, with Kingsley from Utah. I know he said he's close to committing. And then Jeffrey Bassa from Utah has some news coming out. It's going to be a top schools list, and then we'll see where he goes with that from there. So, I mean, those are kind of the few headlines to follow up in the next month.
All right. Yeah. Lots of good stuff to follow up there. Keep an eye on. It's going to be great to see the 2022 class kind of take shape. The Ducks have one commit there already in Marion Winston, brother of former Duck linebacker Lamar Winston from here in Oregon. So we touched on a lot of great stuff. Jonathan, it was great talking to you as always, man. Hope the recovery goes well from your surgery. Stay strong with that, and I'll catch you later.
Thanks, Max. You stay safe as well. Best of wishes. Talk to you again soon.
All right, man. Sounds good. I'll see ya.
See ya.